So we'll do. So these are the type, we owned a construction company for about 10 years. I would say we had we only had like 6 holiday parties, like the first 2 years we wouldn't know to have a holiday party. The last 2 years you couldn't have a holiday party because you had the mask on. So in between that, and I don't do that no more. So that's we kind of passed the baton. But in that period of time, we've done enough projects to speak to it. But I've never been like a handy person, meaning that if you ask me to do, I'm not Bob Vila. So just so you know that, and we have something that we're working with Mr. Miller, which I'm not sure if he's on this call, where he's going to help a lot of people out through this part of it. But when I look at the construction part, we're going to focus a lot on more of the residential side than the commercial side, just because I think that's the preponderance of the people what they're doing. And then if you look at it, there's different types of projects you could take on, like small repairs, remodel, which is more like they always say it this way. So I'm not offending hopefully nobody, but they say, oh, put the lipstick on the pig, meaning that you have a older property, maybe you make it look a little bit nicer, but you didn't do any structural work to it. That's remodel. Renovation, now that you're really going into it, and a lot of times remodel might require some lighter permits. Renovation, you're going to definitely get into it a bit. And then reconstruction, now you're extending the property, you're adding more square footage or adding height to it typically. And then new construction is you starting from the ground up. So today we're going to speak to a lot more in the middle, somewhere between renovation, reconstruction, and remodel, because I think that's like the hundreds of what we see. Oh, Mr. Miller, he heard his name, so he just showed up. It's crazy. So the first thing I would do, like let's say if we were starting from scratch again, right from the beginning, one of the things that you want to do is get bids. You want to get bids from local contractors, and to me, this is an academic thing, but when I first started, I didn't even know, like that's, learn. So the reason why you get the bids is so you can get the right estimates, and you don't want to just get one bid, because a lot of times the one bid could be too low or too high. It's very simple. So, and you want to understand the process, because what happens is, to me, the way that we speak to this is there's a scale part where you're more hands-on, but I think not understanding the construction and trying to be in this business, I think ultimately will lead to failure in the worst times. Meaning the good times is easy, the hard times you will feel more helpless and maybe have less tentacles. At least that's my approach. My approach is to really fully understand the business, even if you're not the contractor, but you understand what's going on, because a lot of money goes out and a lot of failure happens. And I just see this, and this ain't a joke. I just see it so many times, and this is a real conversation. That is not a hype conversation. So yes, you want to be involved in getting the bids of the contractor, and these are the type of contractors that you're going to be working with. So general contractor or construction, and typically that's the person that's going to pull the main permit anyways, and there's going to be a lot of the general stuff like carpentry, framing, sometimes even things like roofing, depending on where you are. And then plumbing and electrician are going to be subtypes where you'll always need them. So in every locality, they tend to have some type of licensing rules, and it's not so simple to get a plumbing license and an electrician license. You can't just buy one. Typically, you can just buy a construction license many times in many markets, but the plumbing license comes with some type of apprenticeship, so it's a little bit more locked in place, and technical expertise that you couldn't actually mess up your property if you try to do it yourself. So I'm not a big one there. Or you could have a lot of problems with the town and you can't move it forward. So electrician and plumbers are gold, especially the good ones. The good ones are gold. And then specialties. So there'll be different type of specialties, which will be like an exhaustive list, right? So it could be things like ironwork. Sometimes, in some places, like we deal in urban areas. So hey, someone may have to, for the fencing, or it might be for like, let's say, fire escapes and things like that. Masonry contractors, that deal more, with the bricks and things of that nature. And I mean, we could go on and on and on. So there's a lot of specialty items based on the properties that you're in. So it's be very specific. Wood cutters, the people that cut the wood for the trees and make sure they don't fall on your house, that kind of thing. And there'll be other subs as well. Sometimes you might bring on subs because like there's skills that that the contractor may not have, or you may not have on your team, that you can outsource, or you may not have the tools. So a lot of times people may not have, let's say siding would be a popular one where, yeah, if you're a general contractor, you can do it, but hey, you don't have the equipment, or you only have one equipment and it's in some other site. So then strategically you might bring someone else to the table. And then you have design professionals. So design professionals are huge because a lot of times you might need them just because you need them because of jobs. The job can't proceed forward without architectural plans to be able to pull permits. And sometimes you need them because you're trying to lay it out and you don't have the in-house expertise to figure out the best way to maximize a project, and technically you may do it wrong and mess up the whole project and have to go backwards. So that engineering, the weight load, that's we're running into a job. We're working more with Astro, where I think hopefully you guys connected this Saturday. We're supposed to connect with an architect and engineer, but the roof is a little bit heavy. So what's the weight load? How is that going to be structured? Well, the engineer is going to okay that, because a lot of times that's hard to know that 100%. So the structural engineer is super crucial. And then land use attorney, well, that's crucial for when you're changing the type. So you may have like a 2-unit and you're trying to turn it into a 3-unit, or you're trying to take commercial into residential, or vice versa. Well, those are land use attorney, and devices go local. Because a lot of times the mistake is you might use an attorney that's like a high-priced attorney, but they go to the wrong jurisdiction. Well, they don't have the connections, they don't know the community, and they might be treated differently than someone in that local market. Landscape architect, a lot of times you're going to have projects that like the drainage, may be required. Depending on the type of property that you have, this could be a requirement. And also traffic consultant and engineer. So basically, in larger projects, you may need that for things like ingress, egress, like things of that nature, because of the way you have the project set up it'll create traffic problems if people too much traffic to a site. And this is supposed to say expediter, so I fixed it. I thought I fixed it, but expediter in some markets you need an expediter in the township, so I mean that, or the city. So let's say New York, I'm very familiar with that. You need an expediter because of the process of the permitting. You need to be someone on it, and there's professional expediters, and there'll be other towns across the country where you'll find that as well. But in some places you will need it, so I know New York City, you need it. Like if you're doing any type of pipeline of construction. And then estimating. So this is something that you want to kind of get a handle on, because it's going to be like how the layout's going to be, and then that's going to tell you how much materials are going to be. So usually they call it like a takeoff plan. So you do measurements, or the architect does measurements. And a lot of times if you're doing a smaller project, I still do the measurement, because that's how you could count your materials instead of just guessing from like this. So I guess so you can actually track it. And then the materials, there'll be all sorts of material that you would need for each job. So we're launching this very soon, just so you know that. So we're in negotiation, but we'll be able to have a lot of volume pricing for our members for the REWI around the country with major companies very, very soon. So we're going to be launching that very soon. It's a no duh. We should have done it a while ago, and we've been talking about it for a year, just never got around to it. So now we're getting to it. So it's going to hopefully save people some money under construction jobs going forward. And in labor is going to be very specific to what the job is and on your market. So sometimes you're going to get a variance. And the reason why this is put in estimating, you have to get an idea. This is how you set up a budget. And then the timeline is crucial, because money is time in this business, whether it's opportunity cost, just straight up, like it takes longer to do it, costs you more money. And also a lot of people are carrying interest costs and have timelines. So you want to estimate that correctly so you can match the job. And then we'll speak to the critical path in a second. But so the blueprints, the way we explain it is like a map of the job. So you want to understand how to read blueprints. And not be clueless about it, because it makes it easier to navigate the industry. A lot of things is once you get past, some simple jobs, well, if you don't know how to blueprint, it's a problem, because then you can't talk to the design professionals, the contractor, construction officials, and your people on the ground. So I would say that this is like, you should learn how to do this. And again, this is, to me, my take is, again, my version of real estate is not like a pie in the sky thing that you're sitting around and, hey, Jeffrey, you take care of everything. I just sit back. That's going to cause a lot of problems if you don't understand the business, because that means that you're really giving the keys to someone else to drive your jobs. And a lot of times in hard times, getting good at this is where you cut costs, and then you can kind of take even more risks. There are less risks to you because you have the skills and you understand how to put it together. But if you have no clue, you got to hope that people know what they're doing. And a lot of times, it's a high percentage of people that fail because they can't get a handle on this part of the job, and it balloons their costs, and it just takes too long to do it. So the business loses its profitability part of it. And it's when you're doing the construction, you've got to pick contractors. So you make a decision, and you're going to do some due diligence when you're selecting the contractor. So that's going to be a bit of vetting on a little bit in the background. I like to work with contractors that other people that I know personally that are working with them refer me. So I'm big on the referral, because then I understand the connection. A lot of times that allows me in the back end, if the person's slow, they get there's a little bit of influence in the background, like, hey, Rafael, call your guy, man. He didn't call me back. So sometimes it's helpful to have that. And again, that's why networking, connecting is so used, because that gives you more strength. Because a lot of times if people don't know you and you don't know them, and they walk out of a job and there's no real a price for that. But if you're well connected, people will know that there might be take pause. They might put you up front, because the thing is that you represent money to them, because that's other referrals that they won't get if you play around. And then the construction contract, and there's AIA, the Architect Institute of America, has templated contract that you can pull from. And why I like those contracts is they actually really focus a lot on the scope of work and manage that. And many years ago, the money's in the scope of work. So managing that aspect of it, because if you don't manage that, your cost can balloon, or you may not get the product that you need. And then there's marketplace considerations. Regardless of, you may have a good contractor, but they're appropriate for this specific job, because sometimes they may not do that property type, that finish job. So a lot of time I speak to luxury finishes versus standard finishes. Some people may not be able to work that well with more luxury finishes, because they may not have the workmanship needed to complete those jobs. So kind of speak to that. And then valuation and construction. And I speak to it simply, meaning that there's going to be things that you do in a property that might increase the value more than something else. So you want to keep that in consideration. So, a lot of times the kitchens bring a lot of value, but again, it's not always a conversation, because something else might bring more value based on the property that you have. So that's why I speak to more generic. And then marketing design. So a lot of times you're selling off the prints. When you're doing these jobs, you're selling a dream essentially, and then you got to execute it. So the challenge for a lot of people is that, yes, they could sell the dream, but then the execution falls short. Then you may have problem closing, and then people drop out of the deal. Versus if you're able to execute what you sold, a lot of times you're able to sell off the prints and have a more of a better momentum and less issues in terms of getting your money at the end of the project. And then a little bit about the research and the contractors, a little more, is that you want to always look at their whatever insurance and check on the state level. And I would always see where they are in terms of any licenses. And in insurance, I would actually call the company and confirm, because sometimes they'll give you the form and they didn't pay it. They just didn't pay it. So not to call people out, but sometimes they'll send you hey, they got the insurance form, great. But then now you call them, the delinquent on payment, so they're not going to actually insure. Or sometimes I've seen fraud, meaning they just white out another contractor and put a different contractor themselves in there. And you always want to make sure you get the insurance clauses right, where they put you as a interested party. So again, you want to work with the insurance agents that do it correctly, because it's easy to make mistakes here. And then, because at the end with insurance, if something goes wrong, you just make sure that you get paid out. That's crucial. And then construction process. So a lot of times you're going to go through approval process. A lot of times it's going to be, if you're starting a brand new job and it's a job that maybe it's like, let's say a historic property, you're trying to turn a historic property into like a 2-family or 3-family. Well, there are going to be zoning rules that control that. So first you're going to have to maybe get variances to allow for that to happen. And then you're going to go through your approvals in regards to what you're going to do. And sometimes it may be doable, it may not be doable, so that's something you want to know. And a lot of times before you buy the property and close, you may want to have the conversations, and then you may want to be contingent sometimes. And sometimes you're able to do it, sometimes you're not. And sometimes you may have to walk away from a deal because you may not be able to get the required units that you want. That's a conversation. In the subcodes. So in the subcodes, they have the different subcodes, which we're going to touch, I think, on this side. Yep, there goes on this side. And the subcodes are just basically saying that there's a plumbing subcode, electric, plumbing, and fire, right? Building and fire. So what happens is when you start the job, and especially if it's the ones that we're talking about, like heavy renovation, reconstruction, you'll need to do all the tickets, and you need licensing for everything, and you submit it at once. So a lot of times the town usually accept it, like, If you start putting one by one by one by one, you have to put everything together. So that's why you got to get your team together first, get the scope of work, get the contracts together, and then you start the job. And a lot of times you can get this rolling while you're in contract with the property, because a lot of times what happens is if you start the process after you close, you're going to eat up a lot of time. That may just take the time, month or two to get the job going, versus you already have the thing rolling from the beginning. So that could save you some time. And then managing construction process. So throughout the whole process, even if you have a GC and you're the one doing it, you want to be on top of it. You want to understand what's happening. And again, for someone that's brand new, this is a lot. But listen, this ain't to sugarcoat things, because if you start sugarcoating things, then you make a lie. And then when you make a lie, then you lose. So at least I didn't say, did I sugarcoat? Nah, I didn't sugarcoat. And this is what they told me from the beginning. So when I was a teenager, they throw you in the deep end. That's it. Period. There was no sugarcoating, and I do that. I mean, with mentorship along, I really don't do the business sugarcoating at all, because again, you'll never get good if you sugarcoat, or you're gonna run into mistakes where you're gonna pay for it. Extremely, especially with construction. And then now we get back to the critical path, which again is when you're strategizing your job is the shortest cut that you need to take, but that you need to take it. So a lot of times people lay at their job and they may not necessarily do it the most efficient, but there's going to be some things that might hold up the job. So you want to identify those things ahead of time. So let's say this is like a pretend job. They're saying, look, clear the site. You can't start anything while clearing the site. Building foundations, that's why it's in red. Install the rough framing, great. But then now you got to get a beat on this HVAC, because you could do all of this, but then you can't continue unless you get the beat on this HVAC. So you may, it may be like some sheet metal work that could create delay. So you want to have everything laid out ahead of time. So when you get there, it doesn't slow up the job. So that would be a critical component, because then you could have everything set and just be waiting around because you cannot finish. So just kind of give you like an idea of you can get more detail here, but just want to keep it high level. And then construction funding and managing the money. So we spoke a little bit of scope of work, of course, cost and time. When you put those together, that's going to be how your job flows. So a lot of times what happens is there's going to be times when it takes too long, or the cost a little bit high, or the scope of work needs to be updated and changed, and that's called change order. And change order can cost you a lot. So that's why a lot of times you want to spend a lot of time on the planning stage of the job, not do it after the fact. We've seen many people fail because of that reason, because they have to make ad hoc changes later, and those are just more costly for many reasons. It's not just costly. And that's what, this is a joke, but it's true. It's like you get the little boat, it's the original contract. The change orders where they slam you, and so you want to kind of just be on top of that. And then there's going to be delays that happen. So who's responsible for this? So a lot of people will point fingers to each other. I would always say that you're responsible no matter what. I don't care, because what happens is you're the principal. And that's why I kind of say you want to kind of understand it. And it's, again, there'll be ups and downs, and you're gonna some figuring out. And that's why we structure a lot of things with mentorship, because that's just the way it would work better. But at the end of the day, it's always you. So that it says period. I don't even nothing else to say, period. And in managing site conditions, you want to keep the site clean, secure. A lot of times what happens is people do have crazy sites where they keep, like a lot of tools, and it's all messy. That's going to be right for theft. And a lot of times neighbor complaints lead to the city coming in and then checking things out, and then giving you fines and getting you into your job. So seeing things that maybe you didn't pull a permit for, or faulty things that they may require you to do, and that's going to increase the cost of the job. So you want to manage the job site in a responsible way. And then when you speak to inspection, so you got the rough inspection. When you start the job, you'll see you start the job, and then you're gonna do your rough. They call it the rough. So it's like your installations of, like, let's say electrical, plumbing, but without putting the walls up, so they could see how those connections look like, and framing and also on installation. And then the final is when you close up and everything's completed. Now they give you a final inspection, and then also a certificate of occupancy. That's how you tend to look at it. And then delivery of the unit, a lot of times everything looks finished, but there's like little punch lists. So you want to manage that very specifically, because a lot of times what happens is that could take a long time. Sometimes the punch list, you could finish a whole job and people waste time because everybody moves their crew out. So it means that now to get the contractor back to do a couple little things, it kind of costs the money. So you want to manage that in the contract tight and even have penalties for this. And then when you're working with, let's say, buyers and or tenants that you're delivering the product to, well, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're very tight on the punch list items as well, because this can be in a very exhaustive scenario and frustrating, and you could spend a lot of money on little things when you want to move on to the next job. And then staying sane. So the process is they're going to be ups and downs and emotional roller coasters. So you want to stay emotionally staying to the process. That's the best way I could say it. And it's easier said than done. Initially, the first job, yes, they probably cost me 5-10 years. We try and live 125 alive, but I say 115 alive sometimes because of the stress from the early days. Now it's not so stressful because, yes, it was stressful in the beginning, but that's why mentorship and all these mindset things that we always speak to, and then maintaining and managing the project throughout. So a lot of times what happens, you may be doing like condo projects or townhouses, and there's other participants in there, like other tenants, other owners. So you want to keep that in mind as well, that sometimes you can't let the construction be crazy so that it affects their livability. So you always want to keep that in mind through the whole process. And then there'll be problems that come up. So those will be challenges that you'll see. So there'll be things like construction issues where things are not being done right, running out of money that happens, stop orders, the town makes you to stop for whatever reason, natural disasters happen, firing contractors, unhappy customers. So keep your vision. So if you keep your vision, you'll get better as you go. And understand it's like nothing's the end of the world, and it feels like it at the time. And that's how you become stronger and stronger in the business. And that's kind of the conversation we have. So this is an example. This is like a older project now, but we used to do condo conversions. So you take the existing unit, like good footprint, but it's like old and it's outdated. Demo the thing. This is a electric, the plumbing installation. You got the framing, the tubs, and you got the installation, and then boom, then let's say it passed inspections, and now you get into closing up. So that's the sheetrock being installed, and then you got the kitchen design. Now you got to design it the way the kitchen is, so when it comes in, the flooring, you got to finish the tile, boom, done. So I said to give you like an idea. So that's what we got. Oh, we did a little bit. The 20. This one's a little bit longer. So what we do is we're gonna open up the breakout room, and we'll see people in the breakout room.